Good afternoon. I do apologize that I'm not able to be there in person to give this presentation, but I do thank you for the opportunity to discuss several outreach programs I've been involved with over the last several years. I would like to spend the day to discuss three specific programs. One is my work with the Purdue Math Club, the second is a research experience that I conducted last summer, and the third is a speaker series that I've been proud to work on for the last 3 summers. Let me begin with the Purdue Mathematics Society, which is just simply a fancy name for what we lovingly call the Purdue Math Club. We currently have 4 officers. The first is Steve Mussman, he's a junior in mathematics. Second is Scott Podlegar, but my understanding is that he's not quite that involved for different reasons. So Colin Ford, a sophomore in math, has stepped in as the acting treasurer. We have Edwin Baeza, who's a sophomore, and Joseph Juan, who's also a sophomore in mathematics. And as I mentioned before, I am currently the advisor for the math club. I should say that the math department has been very helpful in doing various things for the mathematics club. For example, we have an office for the club that is on the 7th floor of the Mathematical Sciences building. There also is a website that the math department hosts for the club. However, for various reasons, the club has decided to use the Facebook page as one of their main methods of getting information out to the undergraduates. They also have an email list that they'd like to use, but really the Facebook page is one of the main things that they use. Here are a few pictures of the various students and participants that we have in the club. The club meets every Thursday from about 6 till 7:30 in the evening. Here we have a picture of Steve Mussman. Sitting right behind him looking to his right is Scott Podlegar. Next, we have a picture of Luis Baeza, who's the one waving. He's actually the brother of Edwin Baeza, who's currently the ambassador. Sitting next to him, to his left, is Colin Ford, who's currently the treasurer. We have kind of a varying number of students that attend the meetings. Here's actually one of the more successful meetings where we have a lot of people. But I should point out that we have various things that happen at the meeting. For example, we have various game nights. Here's a picture of our president, Scott Mussman, who's playing a game of Go. We also have various faculty and postdocs who'll come out to give talks. Here we have a photo of Eric Lumberg. Here's a photo of Leonard Lipschitz, who actually just spoke a few weeks ago. And here's a photo of Ben McReynolds, who gave a talk, I believe it was just 2 weeks ago. There is a t-shirt that the math department has on sale. It actually was designed, I believe, about 6 years ago, but it's still something that we sell. It's kind of a pun off of Leonard Euler, so this is our Boiler Up t-shirt. There are a few events that I've told the club I'm more than happy to drive them to that are away from campus. There is a sectional meeting of the Mathematical Association of America that will be held up at Fort Wayne in about a month or so. And as part of that conference, there's the Indiana College Mathematics Competition, something that we try to attend every year. Finally, the weekend after that conference, we'll have the Undergraduate Mathematics Conference down at Rose-Hulman. I'll say that I was very happy in getting the College of Science to feature the Math Club as part of their electronic newsletter. Here's a link to the website and also a picture of Scott Mussman, who I believe was giving a talk on, not really a talk, more like a presentation of one of the games that they were playing that evening. Let me move on to the research experience that I helped to put together last summer. We actually decided to run a program over 8 weeks for 8 students. It was mostly geared for juniors and sophomores, but unlike most of the RUs that happen throughout the country, we were not limiting our participants to having permanent resident status or being a U.S. citizen. I should say that we actually had quite a lot of support from various faculty in the department, in particular Alejandro Alvarado, who was my postdoc, Steve Bell. We actually specifically used his NSF funds to run the program, as well as Ben McReynolds. I should point out that we used quite a bit of money from Joel Spira, who had given money to the department over the years, and the alum, Andrew Zoltners, who actually had given quite a bit of his own personal funds to help undergraduates work with faculty one-on-one. Last summer, we decided to pull all of the money together so that we could have many undergraduates work together under one group. Here are the 3 of us that were involved with the program last summer. Here's a picture of myself. Over to the right, we have Andres Frigarola and Matt Toniuscutter, who are both graduate students in the department. I decided to create a web page so that the students who were interested in the program could not only learn about the program, but also so that they could apply online. That actually was a very successful experience because we received 83 applications. I believe that the website was only up for about maybe 3 weeks or so, but still it was amazing that we received 83. Again, we were only going to admit 8 students. Surprisingly, only 12 of the 83 were from Purdue. Most of them had come from other schools. For example, the university that had the most outside of Purdue was the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Of the 83 applications, most were from juniors, about half, but we still had a pretty good number that also came from sophomores and seniors. 53 of the applicants had not conducted research before, and only 31 of the applicants were not U.S. citizens or permanent residents. I should point out that roughly 1/4 of the applicants were women. Roughly only about 1/8 of the applicants were underrepresented minorities. I had hoped that we would have more, but still the point was to try to have as diverse of a group of students as possible. Here are the 8 students that I finally decided to admit. This is actually a photo from a trip that we took down to Bloomington. I'll come back and say a little bit more about this in just a moment. Again, we had 8 students. We decided to break them up into 2 different groups. The ones over on the left involve Kevin Bowman, who's a student at Morehouse, Sheena Chanasharan, who's a student in statistics here at Purdue, Angie Lee, who's also a student here at Purdue, and Amanda Llewellyn, who is a student at Harvey Mudd. To your right, we decided to have our second group, which is a little bit more advanced. It had Katrina Edelon, who's a student at Colorado Springs, Juan Fang, who's a student at Urbana-Champaign, David Harris, who's at the College of William & Mary, and Amit Toddy, who's at Howard University. I want to point out that of these 8 students, 4 were women, 3 were international, and 2 were underrepresented students from historically black colleges. We had quite a bit of support, as I mentioned earlier, from different faculty in the department. For example, Ben McReynolds decided to give several talks to the students. I also decided to host a graduate panel so that the students can get an idea of what it meant to go to graduate school. Here we have a photo of Steve Bell. Again, we used quite a bit of his NSF funds to run this. And then we have 2 graduate students here, Jamie Wygant and Aaron Rizzi. I asked several of the graduate students currently in the department to come out to the grad panel just to kind of help out and answer a few more questions with the students here. So here in the shot, we have a mixture of the students who were involved with the RU as well as some of the graduate students who are currently in the department. The students had the opportunity to travel away from campus and do different events. They presented at an undergraduate math conference at Indiana University. Here we have a shot of a couple of the students who are giving their presentation. When we came back, they gave 2 presentations of their research here at Purdue. The 2 groups gave an hour-long presentation each. Here we have Katrina and Yuan, who are standing around some of the models of the Archimedean solids that they created for the summer. And I should point out that I was very happy that we had quite a bit of support from the department. I believe around 40 or so faculty and graduate students came out to see the 2 groups of students give their presentations over 2 hours. Back in January, Katrina and Ahmed decided that they wanted to present a poster at the joint mathematics meetings. Here we have a poster, and you'll notice several models of the platonic solids that they showcased there as part of their presentation. Finally, I want to go over a speaker series that I've run for the last 3 years. The idea of the speaker series was to build a community of underrepresented minorities in mathematics, statistics, and math education, not just here at Purdue, but to have something that would build as part of a larger community that would link Purdue with people from other universities. The plan was to have faculty from different universities to each come out to Purdue over 7 weeks of the summer, so specifically to have young female faculty of color to interact with current faculty as well as graduate students. It was run by myself, my postdoc Alejandra Alvarado, and also with quite a bit of help from the Association of Women in Mathematics, the Purdue chapter that we have here. I should point out that most of the funding that we received was from the advanced grant, and I want to give specific thanks to Chris Saley for all of the work she did in helping us advertise this to faculty in the College of Science. They prominently featured our speaker series on their website. You can see the link here for what we did over the last 3 years. And if you want to get an idea of sort of what we did, the plan was to have a theme for each of the 3 summers. Last summer, our theme was negotiating a career in the mathematical sciences. Here's a list of the speakers that we had. Again, we had several people come out for each of the 7 weeks. I want to point out that of the 7 women that we had here, remember that they're all women of color who had not received tenure. Many of them were postdoctoral fellows. 2 of the 7 were postdoc fellows who had a grant from the National Science Foundation. I just want to quickly say what the trip was like for the speakers when they came out. Mostly they came out for a trip all day Friday. There were 4 specific things I wanted them to do. One was to host a networking lunch with untenured women faculty in the College of Science. Second was to give a 5 to 10 minute video interview so that I would actually film them. Next was to give a 60-minute research presentation for the faculty and graduate students. And the fourth was to have dinner with the current graduate students at a local restaurant. I want to quickly go over some photos to kind of showcase the different things that happen. Here's a photo of a luncheon that we had with Chelsea Walton, who's an NSF postdoc at MIT. Here's a photo of luncheon with Adriana Salerno, who's an assistant faculty in mathematics at Bates College. Here's one of the interviews that I did with one of the faculty. Here's Sherry Scott, who's at Marquette University. Next, we have an interview with Nancy Rodriguez, who's an NSF postdoc at Stanford. We actually tried to hire Nancy here in the mathematics department just a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, she turned us down and decided that she was going to UNC Chapel Hill. We also had an interview with Adriana Salerno, again, who's at Bates College. Here's a photo of a presentation, one of the 60-minute research presentations by Shannon Talbot. And then here's another photo of Chelsea Walton, this time her giving her research presentation. I wanted to end by saying that the 5 to 10 minute interviews that I filmed, ideally one day will eventually all be edited and then put up on YouTube so that we can have a healthy compilation of women of color and their choices for their career paths in the mathematical sciences. Unfortunately, I've only had a chance to edit one of the videos myself. Here's actually a video from 2001 of Talitha Washington and her interview. You can feel free to download or watch the video at YouTube at this link. So, thank you very much for your time and attention.